I'm Sheriff Bill Brown. Welcome to this edition of the Sheriff's Roundup for the fourth quarter of 2021, coming to you from Sheriff's Headquarters. In this edition, we'll share with you the challenges of dealing with COVID-19 in the main jail, awards that were given to our personnel during an annual recognition ceremony, the ribbon-cutting ceremony held at the Northern Branch Jail, the passing of our Chief Administrative Officer, Bob Gonzalez, and stories of Sheriff's Office employees spreading holiday cheer. As the COVID virus continued to spread throughout the community, our efforts to keep the virus out of the main jail also continued. Despite these efforts, on Halloween, an outbreak was detected in the main jail. Sheriff's custody staff worked closely with our WellPath healthcare partners and our partners at Public Health to contain the outbreak and to monitor the affected inmates. The outbreak was finally cleared on November 23rd with a total of 8 cases. Unfortunately, the COVID-19 virus continued to spread in a widespread manner in the community, and an additional outbreak was detected in the main jail on December 8th, 2021. This outbreak proved more stubborn than the first and would continue into the new year. Custody staff again coordinated with our WellPath and public health partners to combat the outbreak, as well as to establish and constantly reevaluate plans for health safety within the main jail. At the request of the Santa Barbara County Public Health Department, the California Department of Public Health responded to assist with testing at the main jail. This state agency provided a team of medical professionals who have remained in the facility for the duration of this outbreak. As an additional measure to protect against the spread of COVID-19, the main jail implemented an incentive program through funding from the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA. It's used to award newly vaccinated inmates with $20 added to their commissary fund for full vaccination or $10 for a booster shot. This program resulted in 148 inmate vaccinations in a span of 2 days, and it was accomplished thanks to the teamwork and partnership of the Santa Barbara County Public Health Department and the California Department of Public Health. Additionally, WellPath has administered over 791 vaccinations at the main jail since the beginning of the pandemic. I want to thank all the members of our custody staff, our WellPath contract healthcare providers, and our colleagues at the local and state public health agencies for their selfless contributions to our county's health and safety by working on the front lines these past few months. We appreciate your efforts. Next, I want to share highlights from our annual awards ceremony that was held on October 13th at the Earl Warren Showgrounds. This event recognized award recipients for their exemplary service during 2020, and it was generously sponsored by the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Benevolent Posse, which has consistently hosted this event as a gesture of support and thanks to the honorees.
What you did, Julia, is remarkable for anyone to come up and think of it, but we're especially touched that a 14-year-old came up with this idea.
The award presentation began with a certificate of merit presented to Julia Rhodes, a 14-year-old junior high school student in Santa Ynez who created autism sensory bags for people with special needs as part of a school project. Julia assembled 6 of these sensory bags and presented them during a daily briefing at the Solvang station, where she explained how they can be used on calls involving children who are on the autism spectrum. So far, one of these toolkits has been effectively used by a deputy during a call involving an autistic child. Thank you again, Julia, for your great concern, generosity, and your innovative contributions to the Sheriff's Office and to the people of Santa Barbara County. Community member David Sparer was also presented with a certificate of merit for his donation of PPE equipment for the first responders during the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Sparer realized in the early stages of the pandemic that there was a desperate need for PPE for essential workers. He manufactured and donated cloth face masks to first responders, healthcare workers, and hospice nurses throughout the county. By the end of 2020, Mr. Sparer had donated well over 1,200 masks to the Sheriff's Office alone. And because of his dedication, support, and generosity, many essential workers, including sheriff's personnel, were better protected while they continued to fulfill their duties to the people of Santa Barbara County. United States Marine Corps Reserve Brigadier General Fred Lopez, retired, presented Sheriff Sergeant Jarrett Morris with the Military Order of the World War's Law and Order Individual Award. Sergeant Morris was honored for his distinguished career and specifically for his outstanding leadership this past year, which included supervision of the Sheriff's Office K-9 unit, his role as the coroner's sergeant during the 1-9 debris flow and Conception dive boat disaster, and his leadership of the Sheriff's Office Mobile Field Force team. 15 sheriff's deputies received a commendation for Narcan saves, where they administered Narcan in a manner that resulted in the reversal of a suspected opioid overdose and thereby prevented a victim from dying. The honored deputies included Sergeant Edward Moss, Deputy Bruno Bertuzzi, Deputy Matthew Chancharillo, Deputy Joshua Elizalde, Deputy Hartley Friedman, Deputy Garrett Gish, Deputy John Heil, Deputy Cody Kiesel, Deputy Damian Marquez, Deputy Justin Orapoza, Deputy Mark Rigger, Deputy Robert Samaniego, Deputy Ben Sandu, Deputy Daniel Skall, and Deputy John Valenti. Sheriff's Senior Deputy Matthew West received the Sheriff's Life-Saving Award for his response to a call involving a 26-year-old man who was non-responsive and not breathing. Senior Deputy West was first on scene to the call, where he found the patient lying on the roadway next to a vehicle. The patient wasn't breathing and had no pulse and was cold to the touch, and his skin was bluish purple in color. Senior Deputy West believed he was a possible opioid overdose victim and administered a single dose of Narcan to the patient, and he began CPR. Senior Deputy West provided CPR for several minutes until Santa Barbara County fire personnel arrived. The patient eventually began breathing on his own and was transported to Marion Regional Medical Center, where he made a full recovery. Sheriff's Deputy Sean Banks and Deputy Celeste Johnson were also presented with the Sheriff's Life-Saving Award for their response to a suspected overdose call. Deputy Banks and Deputy Johnson arrived at the scene before emergency medical services and found the patient on the floor of a bathroom, unconscious and unresponsive. Deputies immediately began performing CPR, taking multiple turns while an automated external defibrillator was deployed. The AED assessed the patient and recommended CPR to continue. Both deputies traded off CPR duties for several minutes while continuing to assess the patient. Deputy Banks and Deputy Johnson believed the patient was suffering from a possible opioid overdose and deployed a single dose of Narcan as fire and medics arrived at the scene. They took over the medical aid, and the patient responded positively to the Narcan and was conscious, alert, and breathing on his own a short time later. Sheriff's Senior Deputy David Frawley, Sheriff's Deputies Nicholas Adamitis and Gregory Plett, and Behavioral Wellness Licensed Marriage and Family Therapist Melissa Miller received the Sheriff's Life-Saving Award for their response to a call for a suicidal subject. Sheriff's Dispatch received a request from the San Luis Obispo Police Department to check the welfare of a Cal Poly student who had sent a text message to his roommate stating that he was in a tree with a noose. Deputies and LMFT Miller responded to the area of the Cold Spring Bridge on Highway 154, where they found the young man sitting on a large branch 15 feet up in a tree about 75 yards away. Responders spent hours patiently talking with the student, slowly building a rapport and moving incrementally closer to him. But after several hours, the student abruptly jumped from the tree. Deputy Plett reached the student first and immediately cut the rope that was suspending him. Deputies Plett and Adamitis then lowered him to the ground and removed the noose from around his neck and stabilized his head. The patient was extricated and transported to Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital, where he eventually recovered from this harrowing ordeal. Sheriff's Senior Deputy Patrick Hayes and Sheriff's Deputy Christopher Morales received the Sheriff's Life-Saving Award, and community members Beth Cuyuba, Tess Edwards, Laura Morales, and Melissa Riemann were awarded certificates of merit for saving the life of a 70-year-old man who appeared to have suffered a heart attack and collapsed on the boardwalk near Linden Avenue in Carpinteria. Sheriff Senior Deputy Patrick Hayes and Deputy Christopher Morales were nearby and alerted to the medical emergency. When they arrived on scene, deputies assessed the emergency and began to render aid to the patient, along with two off-duty nurses, Laura Morales and Beth Koyuba, who were already performing CPR with the assistance of off-duty flight nurse Melissa Riemann and State Parks lifeguard Tess Edwards. Sheriff's deputies joined in providing emergency care, and with the combined efforts of Ms. Riemann, Ms. Edwards, Sheriff Senior Deputy Hayes, and Deputy Morales, they continued their life-saving efforts. Sheriff Sergeant Calderon arrived on scene with an automated external defibrillator that was applied to the patient's chest, and one shock was administered. After several additional rounds of CPR, the patient began to breathe on his own. He was transported to Cottage Hospital for advanced medical treatment, and he eventually made a full recovery. Sheriff's Commander Darren Fotheringham received the Santa Barbara Sheriff's Meritorious Service Medal for his work on a project that will save the Sheriff's Office over $240,000 in the first year alone, and in excess of $1.5 million over 10 years through a new vehicle lease program with Enterprise. Based on Commander Fotheringham's extensive research, the Sheriff's Office decided to contract with Enterprise for the lease of over 100 vehicles, which resulted in savings of hundreds of thousands of dollars that can now be redirected to other needs. The Sheriff's Office Mobile Field Force team was awarded a Sheriff's Unit citation for their tireless efforts, adaptability, and outstanding performance during their deployments to outside counties. The team was deployed to several mutual aid requests in the Los Angeles, Santa Monica, Hollywood areas, as well as to San Luis Obispo County to assist with ongoing civil unrest, violent protesting, and mass looting. The team also responded to the state capitol in Sacramento in conjunction with the inauguration of the 46th President of the United States, with the mission of structure protection in the downtown area immediately outside the Capitol building. Lastly, the Sheriff's Office Custody Branch was awarded a well-deserved Sheriff's Unit citation for their tireless efforts, courage, and resilience during the difficult and unprecedented times of the COVID-19 pandemic. The county's main jail is the second largest congregate living facility, and in this environment, the threat from COVID-19 has been unprecedented and required a level of flexibility by custody staff as they navigated consistently changing precautionary measures in a sustained effort to safeguard the inmates in their care, as well as keeping themselves safe from the pandemic's threat. The members of the custody team have bravely worked on the front lines of the COVID pandemic since it began. Congratulations to all of our award recipients, and thank you for your exemplary service to the community.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming?
On November 18th, the Sheriff's Office hosted a ribbon-cutting ceremony at the new Northern Branch Jail on Black Road in Santa Maria. The ceremony marked the completion of over 5 years of construction on a one-of-a-kind facility.
Today, let us be mindful of what the new Northern Branch Jail means for the future. Enhanced safety and convenience for the community, better working conditions for our incredible custody staff, and more opportunities for revitalized lives, lower rates of addiction and recidivism, and for many former offenders and their families, a future filled with happiness, hope, sobriety, and success, instead of discouragement, hopelessness, addiction, and misery. May God bless this facility and all who enter into it in the future.
In attendance were dignitaries from numerous county agencies, members of the media, community members, as well as current and retired Sheriff's Office staff. Guest speakers included then Chair of the Santa Barbara County Board of Supervisors, Bob Nelson, Kevin Carruth, a retired undersecretary with the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, Rick Roney, the former chair of the Sheriff's Blue Ribbon Commission on Jail Overcrowding, and retired Sheriff's Commander Tom Jenkins. The construction of the Northern Branch Jail was a lengthy odyssey that began as a quest for solutions to address the significant and chronic overcrowding in the main jail. But it evolved into a way of finding smarter and more effective ways to incarcerate and reform offenders, reduce recidivism, and make our community safer.
In August of last year, I received a 12-page handwritten letter from a woman who was being held in our jail.
During the ceremony, I shared excerpts from a poignant letter that I received from a former inmate. The woman, whose identity was shielded with a pseudonym of Connie, wrote in great detail about 19 custody staff members, lieutenants, sergeants, corporals, and deputies, who had treated her with respect and kindness and inspired her to be a better person. She said that while in our jail, she had been taught time management, dependability, skill excellence, mindfulness, observation, workplace courtesy, selflessness, and professionalism. She wrote, and I quote, "In this jail, if a person doesn't change, it isn't because you have failed to provide the resources, it's because they simply do not want to change. Most inmates do not think they are worth the time of day to be spoken to on an intellectual level. And when an officer speaks to us with wisdom and intellect, it is a conversation we will never forget. The result is these generous acts of kindness and gentleness have taken a broken woman and healed her into someone great. I am not doubtful that in the end, my victories and accomplishments will be nothing shy of great, because God has so willed it by providing this experience under the care of your authority." Connie ended her letter with these words, and again I quote, "I hope that you'll keep this letter for when your years as sheriff are done. If you ever doubt, if you ever question whether you did enough, if your efforts yielded results, just read this letter. Be comforted and remember that the answer is yes, remarkably so." End quote. There are a lot of people like Connie in our jail system, people who have made mistakes, who have hurt others by theft, neglect, or violence, people who've struggled with rough childhoods and difficult lives, perhaps checkered by impulsiveness, thoughtlessness, cruelty, and addiction, but people who are nevertheless bright, willing to learn, searching for meaning, and willing to be inspired. People who are resilient, who are willing to change, and who are redeemable. This new facility offers hope for them and for our county, with enhanced safety and convenience for the community, better working conditions for our incredible custody staff. We expect many transformations and success stories like Connie's to come from this state-of-the-art branch jail. In October, we hosted our annual pumpkin decorating contest with the added excitement of taking our creations on the road to share with the public in person. This year's contest featured 12 creations that ranged from an adorable baby Yoda, a double-decker graveyard scene, Pinocchio with a stem for his nose, and old friends Bert and Ernie. With nearly 1,000 votes cast, the crowd favorite was Audrey 2, created by WellPath staff in the main jail. To celebrate the 2021 holiday season, we enlisted the help of young artists for a holiday card contest. We asked kids 12 years and younger to submit artwork to be featured on our annual department's holiday card. The winner was 9-year-old Mia Luna of Lompoc, with her drawing of a sunset with holiday lights and a detailed drawing of the sheriff's badge. I met with Mia and her family at the Lompoc station, where I presented her with a certificate of merit and an art set to keep her creativity going. Thank you, Mia, for your excellent work. In our last edition of the Roundup, I was excited to introduce our newly selected Chief Administrative Officer, Robert "Bob" Gonzalez. A little over 3 months later, with great sadness and a heavy heart, it was my duty to announce that this fine man had passed away. Bob died on November 30th, 2021, at the age of 71, due to complications following cardiac surgery. Bob became our agency's first non-sworn human resources manager on August 31, 2019. Just 2 short years later, on September 5th, 2021, he was promoted as our first ever Chief Administrative Officer. He remained in the position until his passing. Bob is survived by his 4 adult children, Stephen, who's a sheriff's deputy with our agency, and is married to Bob's daughter-in-law, Deputy Charlene Gonzalez, Michelle, Mandy, and Brian. He also leaves behind 9 beloved grandchildren. Bob loved life and his chosen profession, law enforcement. He was the retired chief of police from Santa Paula, California. And he loved to work, and it showed. He touched many of us with his warm smile and his positive nature. He left a big impression on all of us, and he is greatly missed. Rest in peace, Bob. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Sheriff's Roundup. Thanks for watching, and thanks for supporting us as we protect your safety.